Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in bad movies, for that is why you clicked on this video. And remember, my friend, bad movies such as these will be bad, and they will be movies. You are interested in the poorly written, the poorly acted, the unwatchable. That is why you are here. And now, for the first time, we are bringing you our full review of what happened in that fateful movie. We are bringing you all the laughs, based only on the passionate filmmaker who created this terrible film. The editing, the characters. My friend, we cannot keep this Framewreck off our show any longer. Let us laugh at the guilty. Let us reward our viewers. My friend, can your heart stand the shocking Framewreck of Plan 9 from outer space?
What a story, Mark.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Framewreck, our 10th episode in the 9th month of the year for a Plan 9 from outer space. We got a lot of numbers going on, but I will turn it over to Matt Chapman, our co-host. Matt, how are you? Are you excited to talk about Plan 9 from outer space?
I'm incredibly excited to talk about Plan 9 from outer space. It's the classic. It's the big one. We're talking about probably the most popular bad movie ever made, and
Yeah,
I'm very excited.
Yeah, I don't know what to compare it to because I almost said like it's a Citizen Kane, but at the same time, I will always say The Room is like the Citizen Kane because like that is like my like all time like top AFI list of bad movies. But then I'm thinking like in terms of like the era it came out and just how old it is and all that, maybe it is like the Citizen Kane of bad movies, and the fact that like all the bad movies that have come out since, like everyone goes back to compare it now to Plan 9 from outer space.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and Ed Wood famously idolized Orson Welles. Like, so, yeah, like you've seen freaking Ed Wood. Vincent D'Onofrio plays because he like he meets Orson Welles in that. Vincent D'Onofrio plays him, and yeah, so I would say the Citizen Kane simply based on that it is the prototype. It's the one that you go to for the Room is more of a modern classic, whereas this one is the original bad movie, like the big one. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm very excited. For those who've never tuned in, welcome to Framewreck, where we talk about bad movies, but not bad movies that are just bad. I mean, we have had our fair share of those Battleship, but like we've also had some fair share of bad movies that are so good they are bad, and then of course some movies that are not bad that we kind of like redeem on the show. But we'll come to a consensus at the end as to whether or not this is a so bad it's good movie, so bad it's bad movie, or a not bad at all movie. I'm sure it won't be that last one, but we'll see. And as we said earlier, we were talking about Plan 9 from outer space. A disclaimer, my voice is going to be like this lower, grungy, whatever it is tonight because my voice is just going. It's the changing of the seasons. But that kind of fits the mysterious, dark, moody vibe, I guess, of Plan 9 from outer space. So, but Matt, you're going to kind of steer the ship. You're going to conduct the train here because honestly, you've been watching this probably more than I have. This was my first watch. This is not your first watch. No. And I had seen Ed Wood, but not for like a few years. Not since the pandemic, actually, is when I first saw it. So it's not all fresh in my brain. So Matt, you're going to have to remind me of some key things, but I'm sure we'll cover it all because that's what we do here. Break down the movies, and then we also talk about some of the best, worst performances, the worst performances, and of course the lines of dialogue that stand out, all that jazz. And eventually we deem it worthy of Mount Trashmore or not, which we'll get to when we get to. So Matt, where do we begin here?
All right, so Plan 9 from outer space was written and directed and edited by Edward D. Wood Jr. Ed Wood is how he is more commonly known. And originally it was called Grave Robbers from Outer Space, which is referenced in the opening, which is what it is. But and then they retitled it to it was actually released as Grave Robbers from Outer Space originally, and then it was re-released as Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's there's so much good stuff to talk about, and we're going to try to make this as quick as possible here. But that's what we're going to talk about from the beginning. So, because really, how it, the behind the scenes stuff really comes into some of the just really bad elements of this movie. So we'll save that
Yeah.
for the
Yeah, I
conversation.
was gonna say it is one of those movies where like you can see the behind the scenes shit going on as you watch the movie, which is
Yeah.
something that not a lot of the movies can show us. We don't get to see the ins and outs of just all the production troubles they had, maybe some deaths of certain actors and shit like that. But yeah, it's very interesting for that aspect alone.
Yes. Well, let's start with that, because what we're going to talk about now is what makes Plan 9 from Outer Space great. And we're going to start with the characters, which, as I start out, there aren't really any characters in this movie. There are actors who fulfill roles, but every role is so generic that it just comes down to their job really is all they are, or their role in their household, rather than actually having a character development of any sort. So yeah, so let's start there. How did you feel about the overall characters of this film?
I mean, you said it best. They're not as much characters as they are just like figments of whatever type of imagination is on screen.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had seen Ed Wood before, I was kind of in tune to like who some of these people were and all the figures, and I actually found a lot of like the background kind of like one scene or like very minimal dialogue characters to be some of the funniest, like just the ones who are just kind of walking around and doing whatever the shit they're doing. I mean, we'll get into it, but like Vampira and Bela Lugosi, like these icons of the genre that Ed Wood was obviously fond of and wanted to keep their careers going. I mean, you see Quentin Tarantino doing it much more successfully with like Pam Grier and stuff
Yeah.
in his movies, but like this was kind of the bad version of it, of like, oh, let's keep your career going. And you see these actors that are just so washed up. Some of them seem so uninterested.
Right.
Some of them seem a little too interested. And I really enjoy that, all the little bit parts, and of course the fantasy elements, like how people walk, like they think they're possessed or dead or
Right.
zombie like. It's just so funny. Like those are my favorite characters, not the ones that are front and center in the plot,
Right.
but
Oh yeah.
the added little like mise en scène pieces of this giant bigger ensemble.
Oh yeah.
That those are the things I like watching the most.
Yeah. The actual, like, people advancing the plot, if you want to call it that at all, are not necessary. They aren't the memorable parts. You remember, and part of it is because he did get some relatively famous for the time, and one really famous, still famous, actor, to play, to be in his movie, and a lot of it was
Yeah.
because they were well past their prime, or being useful in film. But you have people like Vampira and Tor Johnson, Criswell, the guy at the beginning, the Criswell predicts, which you saw me parody at the beginning of this episode, was an actual, like, known psychic at the time. Um,
Mm.
I love that he narrates it, opens it up, narrates it, and then like caps it off at the end. But at the beginning, it says Criswell predicts, and then tells you a bunch of things that have already happened. Uh,
Yeah.
he does say future several times, but that does not mean anything really in this, because he predicted nothing. He told you of events that have happened in the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a crazy figure. I mean, I did some research on Criswell. Did you know? And here's some. I don't even know how to join these facts together, so I'll just go fact by fact.
do it.
He wore a sequin tuxedo everywhere he went, which
Wow.
I think is very fun and takes a lot of confidence, especially in the era. He owned a coffin in which he claimed to sleep, so he would sleep in a coffin. Some may say a real vampire, some may say he wanted to be one. Some may say it's unrelated. Apparently, his family owned a funeral home, which is how he became comfortable sleeping in the caskets in the storeroom. I think that is the perfect background to understand exactly who this guy is, and whether or not this is a fictionalized version of him or just like him and his most like natural self. I mean, I don't really care, because just knowing that about him makes it all the freakier and all the weirder and all the creepier and all the more perfect that
Right.
he's the one to kind of like segue us into this film. I mean, I've never I don't know if I've ever been had the opportunity to sleep in a casket, but I don't think I ever would.
No, I mean, I'm claustrophobic, so that sounds horrible to me.
Yeah, I don't
I
know if
want
he
to be.
closed it. I mean, that would be even crazier. Like, I
I
mean, I
would
guess maybe to
assume
keep the light out.
I would assume that if you say I sleep in a casket, you closed it. If you don't close it, you're sleeping in a bed with walls. Like that's really
Mm.
yeah.
Either
If
way,
you
but
don't
still,
close it,
yeah.
you don't close your casket, stop telling people you sleep in a casket. That's all I'm saying. But I'm so uncomfortable with the idea of being in a casket due to my claustrophobia that I'm going to be cremated when I die. Like I don't even want to. I don't even want to be in a casket after I've passed away.
Yeah.
Um,
So your zombie self can't be trapped or anything like that.
that's true.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so Vampira is amazing in this because
Also, Mila Nurmi is her real name,
yes,
just
yes,
or
that's
Mela. For anyone who was like, wait, is her real name Vampira? No, I wish. And I'm sure, honestly, there were a lot of kids named Vampira as a result of her fame,
yeah.
and that would have been hilarious. But her name was not actually Vampira, even though I thought it was until I actually checked the cast list.
Right. Well, and because but that was her persona. Like that's how she was
Yeah.
known. It's similar to Vampirella
Mhm.
later, in the next generation. It's a similar thing where that's just how that was her persona. But yes, she did have an actual name that wasn't Vampira. So she, um, I do wonder how much she got paid for this because she does she does the least in this movie. Well, I guess Bela Lugosi probably does the least in this movie technically, but her character literally just stands there like off screen, almost like never, almost if ever, rarely in the same frame as any other person, and
Mm.
just stands back and stares. Uh, and I love that. I love every time they cut to her because it's literally just her standing there staring as though she wandered on set and they're like, roll camera, roll camera.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them have that feel of just like, wait, oh, they're here. All right, let's keep the camera rolling,
Right.
especially when like it's off the set of, and we'll talk about it a little bit, like with Bela Lugosi, like kind of like
Mhm.
in a totally new location too. It just looks like someone started rolling the camera just on their daily walk through the neighborhood. Like, oh, let's keep this rolling.
Well, that's where we're going next is Bela Lugosi. It's interesting you say that
Thank you.
because that's basically what that is. The shots that were shot for this movie for Bela Lugosi, yes, he had agreed to be in it, but those were just like stock foot. Those were just shots that Ed Wood filmed of Bela Lugosi, like Bela Lugosi coming out of his house, smelling a flower, walking off screen. Like that
Yeah.
was just him filming a shot of Bela Lugosi, not
Yeah.
particularly as this character.
And I love how
And
you kind of see it looks like almost like his garage door that he's just walking outside of. Like it's a totally different just overall visual landscape than anything else in the movie. And it's just so jarring, but it's so hilarious because it is that. It's like if someone accidentally was cutting together like a monster movie and accidentally had a reel of their home videos and was like, oh shit, it made it in the just keep it in the movie.
yeah,
And that's what that feels like.
what I love about that is that particular scene where he's walking out his front door, smells flower that walks off screen, is that's supposed to be the moment that character dies, and he because it's stock footage, not built exactly for this movie. Although who knows if it would have been any better had it actually been meant for the movie, but he steps off screen 1 second, like less than a second later, you hear the sound of the car hitting him, the screeching, and then the hitting him. But like that's literally just outside his door. Like how close is that street to his door that he stepped one step and was murdered by a car? Like
never to return again.
it's so good because you could have even like gone to black and waited a second and then done the sound effect as though it is happening off screen, but like give it an actual amount of time. No time was given between when he is off screen and when that sound effect happens. It's truly wonderful. So yeah, Bela Lugosi, he had agreed to do the movie because he was friends with Ed Wood. And he had shot several, this was Bela Lugosi past his, well past his usefulness to Hollywood.
Yeah, and he was also in a dark point of his life, if
Yeah.
I'm remembering correctly. Like, I remember seeing the actual Ed Wood film directed by Tim Burton. Everyone go watch that because that's an actually good film.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, Martin Landau, first off, amazing performance,
so
well
good.
deserved that Oscar in a stacked year.
Yeah.
Some people may have said Morgan Freeman in Shawshank. Some might have said Samuel Jackson in Pulp Fiction, but I think Martin Landau was actually the best choice for the Oscar. But you see, like, he was going through some deep shit. He was a drug addict, just like struggling with that, like, loss of fame and just getting older itself, and knowing he was like inches to his last days. And that's that's a big focus of the Ed Wood movie. Not as much, you can't really tell in this movie, but it does add a lot of context to why it is such an interesting casting choice, and all the ins and outs of what actually resulted with his role in the movie, which I'm sure you'll elaborate on more.
Yeah, I will. Speaking of Ed Wood is a brilliant film. It's actually my favorite Tim Burton movie. It's so good, and I actually see that movie as kind of a dual piece. It's both about aging in Hollywood and dealing with that, and following your passions. It's actually the Ed Wood side is actually a really inspiring and hopeful story, even though it ends in just the worst movie or thing that's considered the worst movie. But the Ed Wood part of that is just so inspiring because he's so passionate, which we're going to talk about because I do want to talk about Ed Wood here in a little bit. But I think that the Martin, like, big chunk of that movie is about aging, is about Hollywood and how Hollywood treats its people and what happens to people who are no longer usful to it.
It's like Sunset Boulevard.
Sunset Boulevard, that kind of thing.
Trying to cling on to an older dream. Yeah.
Yes, it's if you haven't seen Ed Wood, go watch it. It's so good. Anyway, so he had a bunch of footage that was not meant for this movie, shot of Bela Lugosi, and so he decided to use that stuff. But since Bela Lugosi passed away before they even started shooting this movie, they used those shots, and then instead of, what's insane is that they have they have constructed a death scene for this character, wherein they would not have to use him anymore and still be able to put Bela Lugosi's name on the poster. Instead of just using that as a way out of his character being in the film, instead they hired someone who looks nothing like Bela Lugosi to wear a cape over and hold it over his face, the way stereotypically Dracula does, and basically the rest of the movie, that character is played by this guy with a cape in front of his face.
Tom Mason is his name.
Tom Mason, yes. Yeah, so Tom Mason with a cape in front of his face is that character for the rest of it, which is, number one, so obviously not Bela Lugosi when you're watching it. But not just that, even if you thought it was Bela Lugosi, you would honestly, the worst thing they could have done was make it seem like Bela Lugosi was making the choice to hold the cape in front of his face in every single scene. It's insane. The idea that someone would do that is so insane, but also hilarious. So
like let's think of a star that hasn't been in movies in a long time, like Gene Hackman or Jack Nicholson. Imagine you get Jack Nicholson for a movie, and he's holding a cape and something in front of his face the whole movie and not saying anything, and only in a few scenes. Like, you would be alarmed. You'd be like, wait, what? Like, this is your headliner, or not your headliner, but this is your big name. And I think that's like the perspective they probably saw it back then. Because I don't know how big of a star Bela Lugosi was when this came out in the 50s, right. But I have to imagine he was still, I mean, people who were watching movies in the late 50s were probably like young or around when Bela Lugosi was huge and was a big name. So I'm sure they would have, realized that, like, oh shit, like, what are they doing with this guy? Like, I'm sure he was still a well-known name despite not being in anything.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was just 20 years earlier that he was Dracula and in The Raven, and he was Igor in Son of Frankenstein. So like he was, it was just like 20 years before this, so it was not so
So it
long
would be
ago
like
that
Jack Nicholson essentially.
Jack
Like
Nicholson,
yeah,
Gene
someone we
Hackman, yeah,
still
someone
know
like that.
who it is. Like very
But
relevant.
it's not only that if Jack Nicholson had a thing over his face the whole time, it's if Jack Nicholson had a "Hey, I was the Joker" sign holding it in front of his face the whole time. Like,
That's true too.
look at this great part that I played, because that's essentially
Mhm.
what he's doing. He's calling back to that one role, or
That's
they
a
are
good point.
calling back to that one role of his, as though it's Bela Lugosi doing that.
Mhm.
It's kind of insane, yeah. Um, did you have any other characters you wanted to point out? I've got one that I want to point out later, but
Yeah,
if you want
I honestly don't know what his name is, but it's the guy who walks around almost like Frankenstein, like a zombie.
the big guy,
Yes. What is his name? Because
his
I
name
was
is Tor. His name is Tor Johnson.
That's it. Inspector Daniel Clay
Yes,
is the character. He has, I mean, he has my favorite moments. Like just the way his face is designed, the way he looks. It actually is kind of creepy. It's like
it's
a good
he's
effect.
actually
But
menacing. Like, he's the
but
only effective part of this movie.
but there are so many parts of the movie though where like you'll see that because he's either I don't know if he's like wearing anything in his eyes or if his view is obstructed, but he'll like trip on something and then like stumble a bit. Like they keep the camera rolling at times, which is just so funny watching him navigate around because he is making big choices, but with that,
Right.
like all the flaws are seen, and I just think that's hilarious because it's just so funny. I don't know. He's the one who always when I watch it, I'm like, that guy.
There are some really great funny points. He is very menacing though, so like it is, if anything in this movie is effective, it's him. But also, yes, it does have some very funny parts. His I don't know that this is exactly what they did, but back then contacts were so expensive. They probably did the same thing they did on the first Evil Dead movie, which was paint the eyelids to look
And had him
like
close
wide eyes, and had him closed eyes, because in the first Evil Dead movie, that's how they do the Deadites with the white eyes, is they have closed eyes, but the eye makeup is done to make it look like they're open eyes that are white. I'm
Well, that
sure
explains
that's
it
what
even more now.
I'm
His
sure that's what this
disorientation.
was, and that's why he was tripping and stuff like that. But yes,
Yeah, like
there's
I can't remember if there's a scene of where he's like coming out of like a ditch in the ground or something, and he's
yes,
trying to like get up and pull himself up, and he just
and
like
like
can't.
the dirt gives, and he kind of falls.
Yeah, like that is so funny to me. I'm like,
Well,
because that's something you could easily retake and edit around, but they don't. They're just like, yeah, no, let's just show all the blemishes, and
the,
I appreciate that, but I'm also
yeah.
like, it's so crazy.
That's actually a good example of the both sides of Tor Johnson in this movie that I love, which is that yes, there's a lot of those little moments that, like, where the dirt gives and so he kind of falls a little bit, but that when he first rises up and he's like, oh, the light's coming up, that is actually like a really good entrance. And I'm like, I really like that part of the movie. Like, legitimately, not even ironically, I
There you go.
legitimately like that part of the movie where he first shows up in the light, and then almost immediately, like, the dirt gives out and he kind of falls a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, it's so good. As far as the other characters, the pilot who's just sitting in a chair not doing anything, and then comes home to his wife uh who saw a saucer, and I don't know, it's so hard to even pay attention to what is happening in those
Right.
scenes because they are so dull.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
uh those people are very, very bland. Did you have anything to say about the bland people before
Well,
I
I mean, I think that kind of segues us into like the movie itself, and in the fact that like I think its blandness it does show at times, and
Mhm.
while it is monumental because it was like the first movie like this to be like just it's the Citizen Kane, like we said. But I feel like some people nowadays, when they're talking about good movies, they'll look at Citizen Kane and be like, "This is the best one," and it's because
Mhm.
you have to put it in context of what it means for cinema. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what I got from this movie. I was like I get it, it's bad, but I'm also like I'm not as entertained by its badness than I am with some of the more modern ones because also like you said, like the scenes are dull. Like they're bad, but they're
Mhm.
also dull. And unless you're getting those movie moments with Vampire or Bela Lugosi or Tor Johnson, like I think when it's not focused on the kind of wacky what trippy shit or whatever.
Mhm.
Trippy's probably not the right word, but you know what I mean. The more
Yeah.
outlandish shit. Like I think that's where I got a little bored by it, and I
Mhm.
was like, is this just bad? Period. But then like watching Ed Wood, and then also just like focusing on the other aspects so much, I'm like, no, but like it's so like I can't help but be fascinated by it.
Right.
Like it's weird. Like I don't think I'd ever throw this on again for entertainment's sake, but I think I would like go back to certain scenes of this and
Mhm.
moments and like just kind of like talk about it more, because I think it's more interesting in discussion and in its few bits than it is as a whole, because like you said, those scenes are dull and they are kind of boring and they do slog a little bit
Right.
despite it being a short film, you know.
Right. Well, and I obviously I do turn this one on. Okay, I've owned it on DVD for 15, 20 years or something. Like it's
Nice.
I've had it for a long time.
Wow. Yeah.
But and I've watched it twice in the last month, partially because we were originally going to do this last month and then we didn't. Um, but I've watched it twice in the last month, and those scenes never improve for me. So like those are a good time for me to not feel bad about you know trying to beat that level on my phone. You know, like that's
Yeah, yeah.
those are good times for that. But then
Mhm.
it doesn't take long before you get into before the aliens come in, and the aliens are highly entertaining to me.
Yeah.
Because not only is uh are they just so chipper and happy every time they're on screen, but like they're so very human, and their plan makes absolutely zero sense. And that's
No.
another thing that I really love about this movie is their plan, which
The titular plan.
the
Yeah.
titular plan. It's the ninth one. The first 8 didn't work, which included talking directly to, the president or whatever, like speaking directly to us, trying to. So they've tried 8 other plans. The ninth one, they're like, this one's going to be the one. This is the one where we raise all of the dead, and
Mhm.
then if we do that, then they won't develop a bomb that'll blow up the sun and the entire universe. Which number one, I'm not a physicist, but I'm pretty sure that even if they were able to create the bomb that that uh smashed sunlight particles that caused the sun to explode, would not cause a chain reaction, except beyond where the sun like immediately like maybe our solar system might be I mean would definitely be affected if the sun was exploded, but maybe that would all be like destroyed. But
Yeah.
beyond that, no. I and again, not a physicist, but
No.
I don't think that plan pans out, or that worry pans out.
Yeah. So now, do you want to talk a little bit more about Ed Wood and just the actual production in making this and any of that stuff? Because so much of what we talked about is so good it's bad, but also like I think it all starts and ends with Ed Wood himself, and I think it would be a good time to like talk about just him, because you said you had a lot of interesting stuff to say about
Well,
Ed Wood.
I just really I wanted to talk about Ed Wood because there there's kind of an edict with our show, which is that um, a great bad movie should not be intentional. It should not be intentional bad. It should be very sincere.
Mhm.
And I because a great bad movie is someone trying their best to make a good movie, something people want to see, trying to say something, and then just massively failing at it. And that's what makes a really great bad movie, which is again why we're not going to do things like Sharknado, which are clearly on purpose. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Uh, so what I wanted to kind of talk about with Edward D. Wood Jr. Is that he his passion for film and making this film is extremely admirable. That's what I was saying with Ed Wood, the movie Ed Wood,
Mhm.
is that he he was so passionate about making this film and really making any films, and to me that not only makes this movie better, just knowing how much he really wanted this movie to work and be good. But also just in general, make me love Ed Wood the person. Now I don't know if he may have done a bunch of bad things. I have no idea, but I really love his passion. He made films for decades. Like he was making bad low budget sci-fi horror type movies for decades, and I've seen several of them. I will tell you, Plan 9 from Outer Space is not his worst movie. It's his most entertainingly bad movie.
Right.
It's definitely not the worst movie of his that I've seen. I just wanted to kind of talk about that. Talk about his him, like how do you feel about Ed Wood?
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie in a while, but Ed Wood, the movie, really just illustrates also just like the vibrancy that he is as a person, which I think is important as well. Like he was a straight man, but he wore drag, just because it made him comfortable. He was unapologetically himself, and I think that's something, you know. A lot of times the bad movies we'll cover, sometimes they were made by absolute shitheads at times, and we have to be like, well, fuck that guy, and he also made this crazy shitty piece of art. But in terms of like this, and even like Tommy Wiseau with The Room, it's like they love this so much. As bad as they are at it, they love it so much that I agree. Like there's an admiration I have just watching it, knowing that they put all their heart and soul into it, because like you know, I know people who hone it in performance, in what they do with their life and their jobs and stuff, and you can tell when they're unmotivated. And then you have people who are passionate about what they do and succeed very well at what they do. But then you have this middle area of like, you can't always get it right, but you're always trying to jump the hurdle regardless. And I think that might be some of the most admirable type of people out there, because they not only, you know, have the spirit and the passion, but they also have the tenacity and the perseverance to not give up, which I've always appreciated just in anything, sports, in life, in you know, in this field, performance, direction, effects, whatever. And that's, I think, just as an artist and just as me and you as creators of our own show and our own aspirations, like there are people out there who are probably watching this and are like, that Framewreck show is dumb. Like, you know, and maybe, yeah, sure, great. But we love doing it. And Matt, you should see the passion that Matt has with all the cold opens and writing them out and designing them. And then I like to take a lot of pride in the way I edit my stuff and the way I like present all my stuff on the channel. Like we put a lot of passion into what we do, and even if it's not recognized for what the product is, I always hope that people at least admire us for having the goals and ambitions, and that's what Ed Wood had. So like I do definitely, you know, owe it to him for doing this, even if I do think it is duller than a lot of people made it out to be, because a lot of people say like, oh, it's the greatest thing ever, and I don't think it is. Like I think it is. I think because it's a little older, some of it doesn't appeal as much to me, but like you said, like the stuff that is crazy and bad like is so good that it outweighs the bad stuff, because it's not The Room. It's not 110% all like so bad it's good. There are just moments that are just bad, bland bad, but I don't think that's, you know, necessarily you know, something to judge the movie too harshly on, when the, you know, person behind it is just so not inspired, but you know, inspired in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, and I exactly, and that's it. Another like it would, if I had made a movie this bad. I'll give you an example. I made a TikTok a couple months ago, and I have a bit of a stutter, and so sometimes that comes out, and I stuttered a few times in it, and somebody commented on that, and I haven't made a TikTok since.
Wow. I was
and,
wondering what happened to your series, because I was following it. I was like, I don't know what the next movie is.
And I'm gonna get back to it, but like, if I had made a movie as bad as Plan 9 from Outer Space, and that people told me was as bad because people told him how bad Plan 9 from Outer Space is, I'm not sure I could muster the courage to make another film. And this is not his first film. It's not his last film. None of them were good. And you just have to admire, that no matter what, he's like, I don't care. I'm still making these films. Like, I'm still making the films I want to make. And
I think he had an advantage of, I think he had an advantage of doing it at the time period he did it too, because I think if, you know, we don't see as many so bad they're good movies nowadays, because they're usually made with the sole purpose of being bad, like you said with Sharknado, or when they are bad, they get so slandered by social media that like no one could even take the time to claim something as a cult classic because someone's already shat all over it.
Right.
Like the closest person I can think of that is kind of doing it well is M. Night Shyamalan, and even then, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it was intentional," but also some people are saying it's not intentional. Like even then, you have debates. Whereas I think the time period he had it, yes, people told him it was bad, but I think he had a little less, time, a little less pressure with the absence of just what our culture is today, which I think helps
Right.
him. And then you have like some people like Tommy Wiseau who are just like weren't at the time present at all with, what was going on in pop culture. So like he also thought he was the hottest shit that, when he
Right.
made that movie. And I think that's better. I like the fact that like they were just allowed to be themselves. And I feel like a lot of filmmakers, even the good ones, sometimes feel like they need to change something about their art because they're worried about the public perception, even the good ones. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of, even with like Don't Worry Darling, not getting great reviews, but you see Olivia Wilde on all these talk shows defending stuff when you shouldn't have to defend anything. You should just be able to say, this is why I made the movie the way I did, and this is what I love about the movie and all this stuff. And not, well, we ran into a few speed bumps because of this, and this. And I'm
Right.
like, you know what? No, own it. Like, own your art. Even
Right.
if it's not good to other people, like you still like it, you take pride in it. Unless you don't take pride in it, then you're Josh Trank, and that's a whole other story. But
Right.
you know what I mean. So I
Right.
do appreciate Ed Wood for all that. For all those
Yeah,
things.
let the art speak for itself. If people don't like it, then they then that's fine. You like if you like it, you like it. I love that.
And joining in on the hate doesn't help. Like it's
Yeah.
not going to do anything but make you more upset. Like just
Right.
own it, love your work, and if you're the only one who does, at least you're someone who does. That's how I look at it.
I'd like to before we move on to our superlatives here. I would like to talk about the editing of this movie, which was also
Ed
done.
Wood.
Which is also done by Ed Wood. The editing in this movie is so wild because it'll cut from one scene to another scene in the same location, but you're just supposed to understand that it's a different time and time has passed. Like especially in the graveyard, like they'll cut from Tor Johnson's character being killed to the people in that same area being like, I wonder where whatever his name was, Lieutenant Clay, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Wonder where he is.
But
it's like in the same place. So like the idea that time has passed or they have moved from there is insane. Like and I talked about earlier with the editing with the car crash scene, like you could have edited your way around that scene, that clip being so short, but the editing is so bad that it sometimes makes it hard to even understand if there is anything to understand what's going on in there, especially in those type of scenes. Did you notice the editing when you were watching?
Did I notice? I did. And that's another reason why I think even as dull as some of the scenes are, like the connection between the scenes, it's the editing is just so I don't even know the word for it, and that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, it's insane. So that the editing. I did also want to touch just on I guess I already touched on the aliens. I just love how I really love that scene, and I'm just going to talk about this scene here where they bring Tor Johnson into the spaceship, and the conceit or the idea, the conceit that they have there for controlling him is this gun that has to be pointed at. It's very hard to understand because she has this gun pointed at him to control him, and then she can't get it to stop because it's jammed. So but he's attacking someone, so she throws it on the ground, and then he stops attacking that person. And then to get him to leave, they have to pick it up and put it on him again so they can control him. It's very confusing because like, was she trying to get him to attack that person and pretending that's my headcanon on that is that she was using that to control him. Suddenly she can't get it to work. And so she throws it on the ground, and the purpose to throw it on the ground because he's like, throw it on the ground, it'll stop when it does so throwing it on the ground is supposed to stop it from doing what it's doing, but she's supposed to be controlling him, and then he's attacking this other guy. I think this alien woman was taking an opportunity there to seek some revenge. Okay, which this brings us to our worst and best, but mostly worst things. Let's start with worst actor. Dill.
Ooh. Oh boy, this is a good question. I will say Tor Johnson
Okay.
because because he's the most entertaining to me, but I don't think it's for the right reasons. It's my favorite character, but I think it's because the performance is bad. I'm gonna go with that only because again, like the most memorable moments for me are like the little side bit parts, but also like they don't say much or enough for me to say like they're bad performers. Like
Yeah.
Vampiro or Bela Lugosi maybe, but like, or you know what, Tom Mason as the stand-in for Bela Lugosi is going to be mine because I did think of it, and like yes, he doesn't say words, but the fake Shemp.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with that.
Tom Mason is mine as well. For the reasons
Sorry,
I
took
mentioned before.
it.
No, you're fine. Tom Mason is mine. His just again, and it's not even his fault. He was told to do exactly this, but it's so cartoonishly. It's such a caricature of Bela Lugosi, but not just of Bela Lugosi, of a Bela Lugosi character. And if you've ever seen 1933's Dracula, is actually nothing like the Dracula he portrays in that movie. So it's just like this caricature that doesn't even really represent the character that he played. He's doing as that character because it's recognizable. It's just, and it's not his fault, but he does get worst actor for just doing that.
God help us in the future.
I will say honorable mention on that is Criswell. He's just the way his speech pattern and the fact that you can like see him reading the lines. If you saw my opening, that was a callback to that, is that I kept looking down at my lines the whole time. Yeah, it's he's an audible mention, but yeah, Tom Mason is my pick on that one.
Okay. So now, Matt, do you have a favorite? This is one where I couldn't really pick a favorite. Favorite quote or favorite line or hilariously bad line of dialogue.
Yes.
Because I was gonna say that's the one area where I'm like, I don't know if the dialogue itself it's bad, but like I don't think there's any that are like glaringly bad to me. It's more about the deliveries and like the actual actors saying them. But I'm curious to see like if you had one in particular that like stood out to you.
I do. There's some very bad dialogue that I really love. I will say that the winner of this, and I'm going to give you a few after that, just to kind of examples of,
please do,
of the really bad dialogue.
Because I didn't pinpoint one. I was going to see what you had.
My favorite is when is after the pilots, when the pilot's wife finds out, when he tells her about a flying saucer. She says, "A flying saucer? You mean the kind from up there?"
As opposed to anywhere else.
As opposed to anywhere else.
Maybe.
Another one that almost won for me that it's just a line that I really love. And it's all about the clunky writing and how probably no one could have made this work. But one thing, sure, Inspector Clay is dead, murdered, and somebody's responsible. Yeah, that's what murdered means. Murdered means that someone is responsible. Someone did it. If someone wasn't responsible, it would not be a murder. I really love that one. Let's see. What are some of the other ones? Sorry. Okay. So let me segue this into my Framewreck moment, because my Framewreck moment of the movie is actually just entirely a quote. Well, it's a scene with a quote, and it's the one I parodied at the beginning of this very video. Criswell predicts his monologue there is just so bad. And the one that I did the beginning of this video. Once this video is over, go rewatch it. Actually, watch Criswell's, then rewatch that one, and just pick out how I went line for line and just replaced it with stuff from our show. All of the rest of the badness is all there. So I'm gonna read it for you right here. It's greetings, my friends. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. Remember, my friend, the future events such as these will affect you in the future. You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable, and that is why you are here. And now, for the first time, we bring you the full story of what happened that fateful day. We are bringing you all the evidence based only on the secret testimony of the miserable souls who survived this terrifying ordeal. The incidents, the places, my friend, we cannot keep the secret any longer. Let us punish the guilty. Let us reward the innocent. My friend, can your heart stand the shocking facts about grave robbers from outer space? It's so poorly written, and he delivers it so poorly. And it's not just the delivery, and it's not just the writing, but also the camera zooms in about 3 times during it, and not gracefully, and not in a way that makes sense.
No.
Like at first, it zooms in, which in a way that kind of makes sense because they're just starting to highlight him, and then they realize they've got too much headroom. So instead of reshooting it, they just zoom in again and kind of move the camera to eliminate some of the headroom. But all that does is just highlight the fact that he is reading off a cue card and not looking at the camera.
I'll admit that was my runner-up for Framewreck moment. My Framewreck moment, we already talked about it, is Bela Lugosi at his house, walking off camera and then immediately getting into a car crash.
Yes.
I just think that's hilarious. Also, just because of how out of place it is when everything else is filmed on like a set and like it just looks like it's his house. I love it. And it's funny because we're going to talk about our best actor who elevated the material. We may be in on opposite day because mine is Criswell. And it's because I just think I think there's something funny about the fact that he actually is a real life physicist, psychic or whatever. And like, this is just kind of like him just doing his thing. And it's bad. It's entertainingly bad. Like, I don't think there's a good actor in here, but I think if there's someone who elevated it, that opening monologue is so like, it's so enjoyable to me because it's bad. So maybe he is the worst actor, but I think he's like actually like I'm always drawn to him when he's on screen because he's like just doing something completely different than anyone else in the movie. So as soon as I picked him, now I'm talking myself out of it. But that was my pick.
Dude,
so crazy. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you it is opposite day because my best actor was Tor Johnson.
That's a first where the actor that elevated the material for me is your worst actor, and the actor that elevated the material for you is my worst actor. So
yeah, just Tor, and I talked about it before. Tor Johnson is so menacing. Like again, for me, the reason he elevated is because he is, like I said, the only like effective part of this movie is him. Mm-hmm. Yes, he has some of the funniest little slip ups, but also like he's also like super menacing, and so that's where I get him.
That's fair, yeah.
I did want to point out before we move on here that there's something I forgot to talk about, which is and it's when it comes to the plan, their plan, how quickly everything went wrong, and how their plan was to raise all of the dead, and they only raised 3 people. They only raised 3 dead bodies. And how quickly that went to crap. But then they kept talking about it like, oh, it's going well. Like, how long was this invasion going to take? Like, the fact that it failed so quickly off of 3 bodies. Like, yeah, it's funny. Anyway, so that is our superlatives now. That brings us, and we talked about our train wreck moment of the film. So that brings us to the matter of the score.
Yes. Score, and not the musical score. The rating out of 5, and the way Matt and I do it, we do it a little differently. A 5 out of 5 is like as bad as you can get on the bad it's good scale.
Yes.
If we give it like a 1 out of 5, that means that either it is a good movie and we don't think it's bad at all, or it's just like bad for all the bad reasons.
Right.
So the higher the score, the more effective it is as a bad movie.
Right. The top of the bad entertaining bell curve is a 5 out of 5. If it gets too good or too not entertaining, it loses those points. And I'm feeling we're going to be on different sides of this one. So let's hear.
We'll see. I mean, I've said my criticisms, but at the end of the day, and I'll transition this to my score, I still think it is more so bad it's good than it is so bad it's just plain bad because of the behind the scenes stuff, elevating it, and just the memorable nature of Bela Lugosi, Vampira, and Tor Johnson. So I'm going to give this plan 3.5 out of 5 from outer space.
Okay. There you go. It's very good. For me, this is probably it's one of my top 5 favorite bad movies. It's either second or third. The Room and this one kind of hold court below Troll 2, which is my number 1. So for me, this is going to get the full 5 my friends out of 5. Criswell says my friend.
I love it.
Out of 5, yeah. So it's going to get all 5 for me, and but that does,
as it should, because you love it. So
yeah. So that kind of brings us to an interesting conversation here, which is Mount Trashmore. Because for me,
Matt, explain Mount Trashmore to our new
Mount Trashmore is essentially the Mount Rushmore of bad films for us. There are going to be 4. And right now we have 4. I'm sure that there's a graphic.
It's The Room, Birdemic, Troll 2, and Batman and Robin. And I will preface by saying, because you just said what you said, I assume The Room and Troll 2 are staying, because those are my top 2 as well.
Yes.
So now it's a question of, A, does this make it onto the mountain? Which I am leaning toward yes.
Okay.
For all its influence and just because it is as influential as it is, and because you love it so much. But the question is, what does it knock off? Does it knock off Birdemic, or does it knock off Batman and Robin? That is the question. Unless you don't think it should go on there, but I think you're.
I definitely think it should go on there. That's where I was going.
Yeah, if we're making like a historic statement about it, I think it is. I honestly would rather watch the 4 movies on Mount Trashmore before I watch this again. But this one has to be on there. It is one of the founding fathers, and I honestly don't foresee it losing anytime soon either.
Yeah. For
Troll
me,
2 staying, room staying.
For me, Batman and Robin is too entertaining. Like, it's too. Batman and Robin is too competent, even in its incompetency, to not be taken off for this movie. So I would say that this replaces Batman and Robin.
Yeah. Last month when we were fighting to get Troll 2 on there, I really wanted to keep the Christmas special around there. You really wanted to keep Batman and Robin, but I'm going to get kind of vengeance on that, on the elimination of Star Wars. So I will be also agreeing and taking off Batman and Robin because I wanted to take it off last month because I actually do genuinely like that movie. So Plan 9 from Outer Space is going up there. On the Batman and Robin spot, it just replaced what it replaces. There's no order to the Mount Trashmore, just you are in the 4. So now the 4 are, of course, The Room, Birdemic, Troll 2, and now Plan 9 from Outer Space. And honestly, that is such a solid 4.
I know.
I don't know if anything is going to crack it, and if it does, it'll have to be like the worst thing ever. But.
For me, in order for something to make it onto this mountain, it has to probably be something I haven't seen yet. That's like a hidden gem that like just blows me away, because I cannot think of anything right now that will ever unseat these, but who knows? That's the journey we're on right now. Really.
And it'll be a fun argument when we do. But why don't we tease next month, because we do have to get out of here soon because I am on a little bit of a time crunch. But Matt, tell us our great plans and our great guest that we'll be having on our next Framewreck.
Yes, next month, October, it's the Halloween episode, and we're watching and I decided we need to do a horror movie. We need to do a really bad horror movie. And so I reached out to my friend who you've seen before. He's a horror movie expert. He is a bad movie expert. I reached out to Chris Scott Baker, which you may know as Chris Scott, but he got married. Sorry, it's Chris Baker Scott. Oh no, I did it wrong. Anyway,
I'm sure he'll forgive you.
I'm sure he will. I even texted him to make sure, and he told me. Anyway, I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, can you give me a movie, or can you recommend a movie for us to do, a horror movie for us to do for the Halloween episode?" And he recommended Chapman, which I have never seen, and I'm very excited because.
And I don't even want you to tell me what it is because I'm gonna go in blind.
Oh, okay, great. For anybody else who
and
wants
I will
to
watch
know,
the trailer afterwards because I heard you said it was a great trailer, but I've never seen this. I've never even heard of it, so I figured why not take the opportunity and go in blind.
Oh, that's excellent. For anybody else who does want to know something about it before, there's a trailer on YouTube. Shakma is how you spell it. It's from 1990. Go watch it. It's one of the greatest trailers I've ever seen, and by that I mean really bad. But as of right now, this movie is streaming on Shudder. But check justwatch.com to see where it's going. And since Chris recommended this, we're having him on. He's going to join us for the discussion, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, we're very excited, and I do have to wrap this up in less than a minute, so I'm just going to say thank you all for watching Play 9 from Outer Space. Go watch the actual movie, and then go watch Ed Wood come back here and watch us all over again, and watch Chapman for next month, because it'll be mine, Matt's, and not Chris's, but mine and Matt's first time watching it. Chris is probably a rewatch for him, but you all should check that out and come join us for our Halloween episode next month. I was Dylan, that was Matt. We will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
What a story, Mark.